Hi, Susie Homesteader of the Rockies, and welcome to the Susie Homesteader channel. And today we're talking about establishing an asparagus garden, which is one of my favorite perennial vegetables that grows great in the Rockies, Zone 5. It does require a cold climate as well to reestablish itself every year. It doesn't do so good in the warmer climates, and it really doesn't like soggy, wet areas. So the key to your asparagus garden is lots of drainage and possibly even on a slope. So, of course, like anything, location being your most important part of your gardening. This area that I started, it's about a 10 by 12 garden that, of course, is fenced off from deer and dogs and all that good stuff. And it is, as you can see, it's slightly sloped, and it has really good drainage because I started with pea gravel underneath my topsoil and then did another layer of pea gravel on top of my actual asparagus. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But asparagus does take about 2 to 3 years to come in once you get those crowns planted. And an asparagus garden can last 20 to 30 years depending on how well it's maintained. Again, it's one of the hardier vegetables. Now, the best way to get your asparagus crowns is to try and get them locally. If you can't, you can have them shipped, or you can buy them from a local nursery or a plant store. There's a lady I have out here in the Rockies that does sell just asparagus crowns, and hers are about 1 to 2 years old. And you don't really want to go past 2 years on buying those crowns because then they get harder to transplant. So an example of what I've done is I think I purchased about 36 crowns altogether to actually plant, and I think I probably lost about a dozen of those in the transplant process. So it does have, this is one of those few plants that does have male and female plants. This is an example right here of a female plant, a female asparagus, which has lots of, it's more of a fern, and it's just barely starting to produce some berries, which I think I have one on there that you might be able to see. And that's a green little berry that will turn red, and that is how this plant reseeds itself. Now, that's the female, and the males will look more like this one here, which will also actually produce a fern type foliage on the top. But the bigger difference is the size of the stalk. So as you can see, this stalk here is nice and thick, which is what we're looking for. And the stalks over here are real thin and probably won't actually ever get that thick because the females are spending all their energy producing these berries. So that is the disadvantage of having the female asparagus in your garden, except for the fact that it will reproduce more asparagus. And the males are the ones that we'll be eating. And I'll give you a couple of different versions of what these will look like as it comes in. Now, right now, it's about the end of June, and this is a good time for me to show you this because I have all different kinds of sizes of asparagus in here. So, for example, these are just some of the smaller females coming in. This is an example of a bigger female. This is an example of a male that I did not cut off, and this is how tall it got, and it also starts to branch off. Now, those are not the ones you really want to eat because the taller you let those grow, the more fibrous they'll get, and the harder it is for them. It's just harder to eat. So you're really looking for an asparagus for eating that is right around this size right here, which is, 6 to 8 inches, and you'd want to cut that off right at the base, and that will be the most tender shoot that you'll get. So the taller you let them go, the crunchier they are, basically. And then you can, every once in a while, kind of let these male asparagus fern out, like this one's starting to do. And all that does is just make your crown and your root system just a little bit more sturdy for the next year, because you're letting the crown underground and the root system develop. And if you let a couple of these go every once in a while, that just ensures that you have healthier plants the next year. So all kinds of different sizes. This is what it will start to look like right when it comes out of the ground. I mean, you can barely see these little purple tips that start. And this variety that I have is called the Jersey Knight, which is a real hardy one, great for the Rockies in Zone 5. And I've had a lot of success with this. There's several different kinds of asparagus varieties, but these are the Jersey Knight. There's a purple asparagus, and there is also a white one. But these are considered the green. And like I said, you'll get all different sizes and widths. And some of the ones that I've already cut already, you know, the stalks are 3 or 4 times the size of this one right here. So this is not the size you want to cut. That's just too thin, and that one we'll just have to let get thicker. But the smaller they are and the thicker they are on your males are what you're looking for to harvest. So this particular plant will probably start in about late April for me anyway, depending on whether the soil is closer to 50 degrees or not, Fahrenheit. And once that soil gets up to about 50 degrees or more, that's when you really start seeing your plants come up. So mine will last almost 10 to 12 weeks of actual harvest time, which is very long, but this garden has been established, you know, probably over 8 years. And I think in the beginning you'll get of your garden you'll get less of a harvesting time, and then as it goes on, if your plants are healthy enough, you'll get a longer and longer period for that. Generally it's about 8 to 10 weeks that you'll get of actual plants, but mine seem to do really well, and they probably quit growing right around like the beginning of July, which we're real close to. So I've already harvested this 2 or 3 times already, and it still keeps coming up. So I do think some of the success that I have has to do with the fact that I planted this next to a greenhouse, which creates a lot of heat. And then I also have some soaker hoses in here, as you can see. Some of them are buried under the pea gravel and some of them are not. But lots of moisture, lots of heat as well. And then I do have some great drainage, and it's all just on a very slight slope, so I never get any kind of rot in my crowns because it's always getting good drainage. And that's really the most important thing with your asparagus garden, other than getting rid of all your weeds, which you're still going to get. So that's kind of an ongoing process. This is just my comfrey plant, so don't get confused about that. But this also likes the heat of my greenhouse. But the asparagus has just done amazing in here. So you can fertilize these towards the fall. I like to use a liquid fertilizer just because I have the pea gravel all over the soil here, and it's a little hard to compost or fertilize unless you're using a liquid spray, which will just soak in between the rocks. Asparagus is, of course, one of the most beneficial vegetables you can eat. It's loaded with calcium and iron and vitamin Bs. There aren't too many other vegetables out here besides horseradish and a few other ones that will actually be a perennial in this zone that will survive the winters. So this is really one of my favorites. You can juice it, you can pickle it, you can do all kinds of recipes with asparagus. It's kind of endless. And again, like I said, if you have too much of it, you can just give it away. So that's about all I can tell you about my asparagus garden. Every once in a while you can take out some of these females if they start to kind of take over, since you probably won't ever be harvesting those. And if you have any other questions, just let me know on Susie Homesteader of the Rockies website, and I'll try and answer them for you. So we'll see you there, and make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll have lots more great landscaping and gardening videos for you to come. So we'll see you then. Bye-bye. Let's get started. Subscribe to the Susie Homesteader channel, and we'll see you there. Bye-bye.